Hi there everyone, this is Duncan from Duncan's Family Channel. Thank you for tuning in today and watching this video. So I was recently contacted by a friend in the United States of America, and in conjunction with their research in their schooling, they asked me a lot of questions about my academics and about my career path. And in this video, I'll be sharing with you my answers as I talk about my schooling, my early work, and my career as an entrepreneur. Hope you enjoy it. All right, hello there. My name is Duncan Horn. I come from Leicester, England, and currently I'm living in Kuantan, Malaysia. I did not really get the chance to go to university, so I did not take any higher studies in majors or degrees. Instead, at that young stage of my life, I decided to serve a full-time mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, in England, there is no opportunity to begin a university course, then take 2 years out to serve as a full-time missionary and then return back to those studies. So I had to make that choice, either or, and I chose to serve a full-time mission, which was the most fantastic time and learning experience of my life. However, before that mission, I did complete my primary and secondary school education, and I then decided to study for an extra 2 years to take my A-levels. And in England, that's called sixth form. I'm not sure what you would call this in the United States, but I did 2 years studying 3 subjects, which were English, art, and psychology. I kind of did that because a lot of my friends were doing it, and it is one of the regrets of my life because I didn't really enjoy it. I wasn't really that interested in psychology, and art was a major struggle just because it was so time-consuming. English is my love, and I will talk more about English and my business that I've set up a bit later on. But I do regret those 2 years at college because I never really used it for anything. I got poor results, and I feel like I could have spent that 2 years working instead and earning more money, which I would have used for to help pay my full-time missionary service. So after my missionary service, I returned to England, and I did then take an online course. This was at Stonebridge Associated Colleges in the UK, and I took the course of teaching English as a second language. So I completed this online because I was preparing to move to Malaysia, where I was about to get married and begin a new life there. And I know that English is my strength, and I know that in Malaysia there were many opportunities to teach English tuition classes because that was such a big thing in Malaysia. So I took that course and I gained my diploma with an A grade in TESL, T-E-S-L, teaching English as a second language. So since then I moved to Malaysia, got married, and began a whole new life. But I soon found out that it was very difficult for a foreigner to get hired in Malaysia. It seemed like companies and businesses did not really want to go to the trouble of hiring a foreigner because they would have to go through immigration, they would have to sort out all these working visa issues, and nobody really wanted to hire me. So I began my time actually walking around under the hot sun from house to house, knocking on doors, knocking on gates, and just telling people that, hey, I'm an English teacher, I'm looking for students. And I did that for some time, and really my whole business started from there, from this hard work going around house to house. There was one lady who sent her 2 children to me for an English class the very same night that I met her, and she then referred 2 of her friends, and those friends referred friends, And from here, the business slowly started to build up, and I slowly started to get more students. I found people in a variety of different ways. I found people from the curry house just downstairs where we lived in our apartment. I found people at a snooker club when I used to go to play snooker. And so over time, over the months, and of course this has been a long-term thing over many years as well, I have been able to gain more students until we have our very own company and business. So we officially opened a business and did it all legally, and our business is now called Horn Learning Services, where I act as the English teacher and my wife acts as the boss. And so if I had a role model in this career, it would definitely be my wife, because without her I would not be able to open this business in Malaysia. I would not be as organized as we are, because my wife takes care of all the finances, all the things that she has to do online on the computer, and she does a great job in all that, and she really just frees me up to teach English and focus on that. Okay, so prior to moving to Malaysia and after my full-time missionary service, I did work in a warehouse, and so this was like a really big factory that specialized in providing certain products to clients. And so in this warehouse I was working on the goods in team. So all goods that arrived at the warehouse, we unloaded them from the truck and we brought them into the warehouse. We checked them, we counted them, we made sure everything was there. We made sure they were all processed properly and stacked them on the shelves, and we did that kind of job. I did many other jobs at the warehouse too. I found it really fun and really exciting. It involved a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of manual labor, but this paid me really well, and with this money I was using it to save up for my marriage to my wife, which was coming up the following year. So I really enjoyed this work. I worked overtime every single time it was available. On some days I would end up starting at 6 a.m. in the morning and finishing at 8 p.m. at night. So I had a 14-hour day for quite a lot of the time. But the motivation to get married and to make a move to Malaysia was strong. And I don't know, it just felt really satisfying that when you have a certain motivation for working, it becomes easy. And so that's what I did before I made the move to be an English teacher in Malaysia. So as I look back on my career being an entrepreneur, specifically being the English teacher that I am, the highlights are working with children and being able to be a positive influence in their lives, to see them come to my classes with a very low level of English, with no confidence to speak, and then gradually over the months and years to see how much they've improved and progressed, to see that they are confident with speaking English, and just to see the freedom that this gives to them, that when you master the English language and when you're confident with English, you really can do anything, you really can go anywhere. And there is a level of freedom which is quite refreshing and invigorating, and I love to see that with the children that I work with. Also providing fun classes like special Halloween classes, a Christmas class. We have a special Malaysia Independence Day class where I get my students to dress up in traditional costume, bring some food. We learn about Malaysia and its independence. The Halloween class, they dress up in all their Halloween costumes, and it's the highlight of the entire year for all of my students. They love it so much. They love doing these specialized English exercises on a Halloween topic. And so we try to get some of these special themed classes throughout the year, which students really remember a lot and which I remember a lot too. So they are definitely my highlights. Also, we've had the chance to work with other companies and businesses. We have worked with hotels and teaching hotel staff either 12 or 14 class courses. That's been a fantastic experience to go to the hotel and teach the staff. We've also taught at other companies. One of them is a company that does roadworks, and we had maybe 6 or 7 different batches of their staff. We ended up teaching all of the staff in the whole company, including those who are in other parts of Malaysia as well. They came to Kuantan, and we did a 2 or 3 day course for those whole 2 or 3 days, and we taught them a nice English course. And so we've had these great experiences where we've been able to get to know other people, to teach other people, and just to widen our net to become well known. And so now as an entrepreneur, it's not easy because you only earn money based on the work that you can actually give and the service you can provide. And you have to find that for yourself. It's not like a normal job where you just get paid a set amount every month. So we have really been able to develop our business and our brand, our name, and now we have around 50 students who are just on a waiting list, waiting to join our classes. So no longer I have to go out and find students and find people to teach, but they now find me, they message me. The word has spread around over all these years. And so it's very rewarding. When you put the work and the effort in at the start, then it becomes really rewarding later. And that's currently where we are now. Okay, so touching on the topic of linguistics, which is a really good topic as I'm an English teacher, I've learned a few things over the last 17 years of teaching English, teaching a language. And I started out teaching grammar because it was fixed in my head that if you want to learn English, you've got to learn the rules of grammar. And so I did a lot of grammar exercises, and I tried to drill it into my students. But over the years, I've learned and discovered that learning grammar is not as effective as simply getting a focus on speaking English. And so as of today, we focus on speaking and presentation skills. I talk to my students, I ask them questions, I try to get them to answer questions, they talk with each other in the class. I make a rule of only speaking English in the class, they can't speak any other language. And so they're kind of forced in a nice way to speak English. And I've found with those students that stay with me for many years that the most effective way for them to become confident English language users is by always speaking English, not necessarily by studying grammar. So that is the one big takeaway that I've learned. Get yourself exposed to a language, and this works with any language, whether it's English, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, whatever it is. You have to be exposed to the language and you have to be using it every day. And as long as you are getting that exposure, the grammar and all of those kind of foundational rules, they will just fall into place. If you focus on the speaking skill and the speaking ability and getting that exposure, and then everything seems to work out well. And of course, the other lesson I've learned is that the younger you are starting out learning a language, the easier it will be to learn that language. I've noticed even with children, with older students who are 15, 16, and they can't speak English, and the parents suddenly send them to me to learn English, it's much more difficult for them to really pick it up, as opposed to a 6 or 7 year old who seems to learn it much faster. So the age is important, and a focus on speaking the language and developing confidence is more important than the grammar aspect. Of course, there are certain lessons that you learn along the way on your career path, especially being your own boss, being an entrepreneur. You learn lessons about collecting fees, about the right way to do that. You learn how to write up and establish a set of rules and regulations to avoid contention, to avoid misunderstandings. That happened quite often in the first few years of our English business. So we looked at other businesses in Kuantan and we looked at what they were doing, and we decided to incorporate some of those things, similar things, into our business. And over the years, we've got a set of rules and regulations. We make sure that every client and customer is sent this set of rules and regulations, just basically to cover ourselves, and also to make sure that everybody just is aware and understands of what the rules and regulations are, what the culture of this business is. And it helps it to go a lot more smoothly once these things are firmly set in place. I think that's the biggest lesson learned, that you can open a business, you can be your own boss, but you have to have a structure, and there has to be foundational principles set in place, because if you don't do that, people can take advantage of you, you can end up losing money or losing customers. So that has to be put into place, and that is the biggest lesson that I've learned, which is kind of an ongoing lesson, because you always have to tweak things and adjust things as time goes on, as circumstances change. But if you have that foundational set of rules and regulations in place, then it's kind of like it's a good foundation and a springboard for you to then go on and achieve really as much as you want to achieve. And one other thing that I would say that I've learned is to just try and cooperate with people. Try to get along with people. It's so much better and it's so much easier than being contentious. And you may have rules and regulations, but those rules can be flexible in certain situations. So, I've dealt with thousands of students and their parents, and the rules and regulations are great. They're a great basis, but we can be flexible, and in certain circumstances, for certain people, we can kind of adjust the rules, we can bend the rules, we can show a little bit of flexibility. And I've seen that when I do that, and when I'm a bit more kind and understanding in that way, and it's only a very, very small percentage of people, of customers, that you need to do this for, but they really appreciate it. So instead of being so rigid and so stubborn, we can be more flexible. And I found that that's what people really appreciate, and what keeps them coming back to us and keeps them as customers. So it's just about using your instincts, using good judgment, and knowing when to let something slip, but at the same time to maintain the standards overall. So just being a people person, being cooperative, instead of being stubborn and contentious. Okay, so whether you are pursuing studies at university, or whether you are becoming an entrepreneur and starting up your own business, my one piece of advice is the same. And it's the best piece of advice that I've followed in my life. And I think it's the only piece of advice that will really bring success. And that is, you have to work hard. Especially if you're, especially if you're being an entrepreneur and you're starting up in this really kind of, it's a dangerous world, because as I mentioned earlier, you have to find your own customers. The onus is on you. You can't just rely on a boss to pay you every month. So it's a big risk, but it can be highly rewarding. You have to work hard, especially at the start. That is the number one piece of advice. And as you work hard at the start and you give everything you've got and you're committed to it, then it will become easier in the future. And then you can start working smart as opposed to hard. But everything begins with hard work. Even if you're studying at university, taking a major, a degree course, whatever it is, you have to put the work in, because your reward will be consistent with the work you put in. So it's kind of like the law of karma, you know, you get what you give. So with everything, work hard, give your best effort, always make yourself presentable, dress well, look good, and work really hard behind the scenes, and just give it everything you've got. This goes for any worthy endeavor, anything really that you do in life. Always give your best.